Healing. Healing in His wings. What text does that remind you of? Let's turn to the last book in the Old Testament, Malachi, and the last chapter in that last book, chapter 4. It starts in verse 1 describing a day that is coming. Is a day coming? Is tomorrow coming? Tomorrow always seems to come, doesn't it? A day is coming, and it's going to be a very warm day. So warm that there's not going to be anything left except ashes. We read about down in verse 3, but before we get there, let's look at verse 2. You that fear my name. Do you fear the name of... What is fear? Be afraid of His name? No, it means reverence. To cherish and stand in awe and respect His name. Good word there, it's a good one. To those who respect the name of God, shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in His wings. Now, does the Son have wings? What does the Son have that is healing? We're going to look a little bit at that today. And here's a picture of the sun coming up over a wheat field. I think that's wheat. Some grass of some sort, maybe. Healing in His wings. Who was the great healer that we want to look at? And if you've got your Bibles, this will be part of our textbook today. And we're going to, for a little bit here, look at some of these. There we go. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Here we are. We've got several laws. We have been looking at some of these throughout the week. I have a little booklet. It's called God's Doctors, and it's got 8 laws in there. Spiritual laws, moral laws, and physical laws. There's different kinds of laws in God's Word. What are the spiritual laws? You know the 10 Commandments is divided into 2 sections. We got 2 tablets, right? And the first part of it is all about God, worshiping only Him, not worshiping idols, respecting and reverencing His name. That's the first part. And worshiping Him as the Creator on the day that He rested. So those are the spiritual laws. That's the first part of the 10 Commandments. Then we've got some moral laws. What's moral? You say, well, that's immoral. What is immoral? It's the opposite of moral. It's the things that we do to other people. Man's inhumanity to man is sometimes described, right? How countries treat other countries, and what happens when they don't treat them well. Sometimes they get into fights. What do we call that? War. And what happens in war? Everything that is wrong with this human race happens in a war. There is deceit and lying, because you don't want the enemy to know what you're doing. So you set up decoys, deception. You think you're going one way and you're really going away around another way and trick them. So there's lying. That happens in warfare, doesn't it? What else happens in warfare?
Killing.
People don't just get out with their fists and have fist fights, do they? They pick up, now I guess in the olden days, clubs, spears, bow and arrows. We've gotten really sophisticated, and we've got this war business down to a fine art. We can kill more people in an instant than ever before. And we've proved it. Well, a lot of things happen on that second list of the laws there. These are the moral laws. And things that involve human relationships. And then we get the physical laws. What are the physical laws? Well, they were also recorded in the Bible, and these are the more detailed aspects that describe certain things in the spiritual and moral laws, but primarily we think of the health law, sanitation. You go outside the camp, it says in Leviticus, and know how to identify mold on the wall of a house and how to scrape it off, and if it doesn't go away and it keeps coming back, how to stone the house and burn it up, and it goes on all kinds of... Well, we recognize these things as basic public health issues today. Hand washing, described in the book of Leviticus. And what to do when you've come in contact with a dead animal or a dead body. Potentially contagious diseases might be involved. And so there's quarantine. You got to put people outside the camp for 7 days. And what do you do with leprosy and other infectious diseases? All that's just described here in these physical laws in the Old Testament. So we've got the spiritual laws which provide salvation. That's between us and God. We have the moral laws which bring us happiness when we live with each other and how to respect one another. And then we have the physical laws which give us health and happiness, health and healing. And that's really what our focus is on going to be today, healing. And let's look at the best example that the Bible has. The healer. The master healer, Jesus himself. We didn't get very far. I think we got into 2 of these this morning. I'm going to go through these really quick. Just list them. The number of times that Jesus healed on the Sabbath day. I think there was something about the Sabbath that he wanted to make a point. This was a day originally that was a day of creation. Now that we live in a world of sin, it's a day of recreation. Now, we usually pronounce that recreation. And what do we think of when we say recreation? We're going to go out and enjoy some recreation. Play baseball, golf, play games, water ski, sports. Well, hopefully some of these activities will give us some physical exercise, and that will be a benefit to our bodies and help to recreate increased energy and vitality. Jesus often, 7 times, recorded in the Gospels that he healed on the Sabbath. Let's look at them real quick. In John chapter 5, he healed a man who was paralyzed 38 years in the pool of Bethesda. Hadn't walked in a long time, and he told him, pick up your bed and walk. And it was on the Sabbath day, and they caught him carrying his bed on the Sabbath. Shouldn't do that. You broke one of our rules, right? And they got after Jesus. They wanted to kill him, it says. The next one is in Mark chapter 1, verse 21, and Luke 4:31. Now you can pick your choice there, but it's talking about this man who was a demoniac, Luke says. The other one, he was possessed of a unclean spirit, Mark says. Well, have you ever seen somebody who is mentally disturbed to the point they're out of control? I've I'm suspicious that a lot of mental illness is because the wrong kind of spirit has gotten a hold of some people's thinking, and it's got ingrained in their minds. This man shouted out, they were in the synagogue, right in church. Can you imagine that? Somebody just standing up and shouting when he saw Jesus. He said, What do we have to do with you? Have you come to torment us? Us? We? It's one man. We know who you are, the Holy One of God. And Jesus said, Go. That's all he had to say. And the evil spirits obeyed him, didn't they? Just like the winds and the waves when he's out on the lake and he calms the storm. They obeyed him. And it was done on the Sabbath day, and they got upset. Later that same day, in Capernaum, Jesus went to visit Peter's home, and his mother-in-law was sick. She had a fever. This is in Mark also, starting with verse 29, and in Luke 4, verse 38. And what happens when you have a fever? Do you feel like doing much of anything? Sometimes, you just kind of saps your energy. You just want to lay down and rest. And that's what she was doing. Now, she would have liked to have been up getting the meal ready. It was after synagogue. They had come home from church, and they come in there, and she's not up making anything. No food's ready. Something's wrong. They go and check her out. She's burning up, got a fever. So Jesus walked over and he took her by the hands. He touched her and he said, Arise. And she came right up, right then and there. Fever's gone. And the word got out. Wow, did you see what happened? And later that evening it says that the whole town came out. They all wanted to get healed. And a whole bunch of them were sick. Maybe there's something going around. And at even it says the sick came and he healed them. And the next one, that's number 2. The next one, number 3, man with a withered hand, also in the synagogue, was in church. And they were talking about what you could do and what you couldn't do on the Sabbath day. And the Pharisees, who had made all these rules up, said, you can't carry your bed on the Sabbath. Well, we knew about that. The guy back at you can't carry a handkerchief on the Sabbath. Boy, they're getting nitpicky. You can pin it to your cloak, your robe, your coat, but you can't carry it in your hand. That's work. What was the other one? They had some really ridiculous ones. You can't carry an egg sideways, but you can carry it... No, you can't carry it upside down. You can carry it sideways. It's more work to carry. It's longer this way, and I don't know. They had some really... You can only walk 700 steps on the Sabbath. Now, what if you had to walk farther than that to get to the synagogue on the Sabbath? So you know what they did? They made little miniature toy houses, which they'd put along the road to and from church, halfway or whatever, however many distance you had to go. And then that way they could stop and rest for a minute or two there, and then they could start again, and they could do another 700 steps. So they said that was the way to get around that. They made up that rule, and then they had to solve it. So they made other rules to solve the first rule. Anyway, this is crazy stuff. And they were discussing this, and there's a man there with this withered hand. He couldn't use his hand. It had cerebral palsy, perhaps. We knew some people... I've seen patients that have cerebral palsy. They walk with a limp. They have a shriveled leg. They have a shriveled arm. And Jesus says, okay, here's a good example. Is it is it good to do well on the Sabbath? You have an ox and it falls in a ditch on the Sabbath. You going to leave it there all day? No, you go and get that animal out of there. You don't let him suffer and struggle and stuck. Well then, isn't it much better on the Sabbath day to make a man completely whole again? And he turns to the man and he says, stretch forth your arm. Just like he told the other one, rise up and walk. Now this time he just spoke the words. And the man suddenly realized, hey, I can move my arm. And it works. Boy, did they get mad. You read the story there. That one is in all three. It's in three Gospels this time. Matthew 12, verse 9. Mark 3, very first part of the verses there, first 6 verses. And Luke 6, verse 6. So that's 3 healings on the Sabbath. Here's another one. When he went to Nazareth the second time, you remember the first time he went to Nazareth and he announced, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me and has anointed me. I'm the Messiah. The word Messiah means anointed. Christ means anointed. He says, I am the Christ. I am the Messiah. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me and He has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, to give sight to the blind, that's healing, to raise up them that are sick, that's healing, to set at liberty those that are in bondage, in prison, captives, set the captives free. Well, okay, this is also in Matthew and Mark. Matthew 13, verse 54, and Mark 6, first 6 verses. This was in a Sabbath again. He's at Capernaum this time. No, Nazareth. He's at Nazareth. Second time. Well, the first time he said that, he said, this day is this fulfilled in your ears. Huh? You're not the Messiah. We know who you are. You're in your hometown. You grew up here. We saw you as a little tiny kid. We know your brothers and sisters. We know your mama and your daddy. He's just a carpenter. You're not the Messiah. And they got mad and picked him up, pushed him out the door, ran him to the side of the hillside. There was a cliff. They were going to throw him over the cliff. And they looked around and he was gone. He just walked away, it says. Walked right through them. But he's back the second time now to Nazareth. And he can't do anything. He's in the synagogue again. And their people have heard that he can heal, and they've come. But he says there, only a few could be healed. Because they didn't believe in him. Now you remember many times, Jesus, when he just spoke the words, he would say, according to your faith, let it be unto you. That was the example of one of the, I think it was a centurion, who came, this is in Matthew chapter 9, came saying, my son is with a high fever, he's sick at home. And that was the story that we were talking about in Sabbath school. And Jesus says, fine, I'll go and heal him. And he says, no, you don't need to go. Just speak the word only. I know that you have authority over the evil spirits. You can cast them out. All you have to do is speak. And you just speak and cast out that fever out of my son. I'm a man of authority. I have soldiers under me. I'm a centurion. I tell one to go one place and I tell somebody else to go another, and they do it because I have authority. You have authority. Just speak the word. Jesus said, according to your faith, be it unto you. Well, that one wasn't on a Sabbath day, but many times it was dependent on the faith of the person. Now, do we see this when we're working with people trying to get them healing? If they are skeptical, if they don't think this is going to work, it may not, because they're not going to put everything into it that they need to. They need to have an expectation and a faith in God. He's the only healer. It's nothing that we do in these sessions. It's what He does. Well, the next one, that was number 4. Number 5, is that 5? Am I counting them right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Whoops, no, 4. That was number 5. Number 6 is the man born blind, John chapter 9. It's the only place that one's found. You remember the story. The disciples saw this man born blind. He was blind from birth, hadn't seen anything in his entire life. And the disciples said, "What about this man?" The Pharisees say that sickness is due to sin. If you're sick, it's because you've sinned. Whose sin was? This man. He was born this way. Was it his parents' sin, or is it something he did? In utero? I don't know. How would that be? How would be the fact? Jesus said, neither. That has nothing to do with it. But He is an opportunity to show the power of God. And so He told the man, no, He didn't. First of all, He bent down, He spit on the ground, combined His saliva with the dust of the ground, made some mud, put it on the man's eyes, and then told him to go wash in the pool of Siloam. Which he did, and he could see. But it was on the Sabbath day. And Jesus is in trouble again. Well, not yet, because they don't know who did it, but he's seeing, and he's jumping up and down, and he's leaping and excited. I've never been able to see in my entire life. Of course, that was a miracle in itself, as we've said before. Just to be able to know and recognize and make an intelligent interpretation of what you're seeing. And what does it mean? That's almost the greater miracle. But he could see now. And the Pharisees said, we're not so sure you ever were blind. We think this is just a gimmick. You pretended to be blind. And where's your parents? We want confirmation. We want a second opinion. Called his parents in there. Nope, he really was blind. How can he see? Well, you don't know. He's old enough. You ask him. They didn't want to get in trouble. It's on the Sabbath day. Jesus healed one more on the Sabbath day. And this was the woman that was bent over, couldn't stand up straight. 18 years Satan had bound her. Jesus said, Satan bound this daughter of Abraham for 18 years. And he put his hand on her, it says. Wow, is there benefit in hands-on massage, increasing the circulation, physical touch? Jesus did that. And she was healed on the Sabbath day in the synagogue. Well, those are the seven times that Jesus healed. And notice how he did it. He spoke, he touched, he put his hands on people, he lifted them up. This wasn't on the Sabbath, but you remember the young man, the son of the woman from the little village of Nain. Jesus walking along, and here comes a funeral procession. And they're carrying this young man. He has died. And his mother, she's a widow. She has no one else to take care of her. He was her son, her only son, it says. And Jesus raises him back to life. Young man, raise up. He speaks. He touches, he lifts him, takes him by the hand. Jairus' daughter, he took her by the hand, it said, and spoke to her. Talitha kumi, maiden, arise. Okay, well, that's Jesus. Let's look at some of the ways in which we can have and experience healing today. Jesus was the light of the world. And light has healing properties, especially with sunlight. It has all of the frequencies of the visible light spectrum. We've got some of the colors of the spectrum. Here on the far right side, you've got the infrared, and it's red. But in the infrared, you can't even see the red anymore. It just goes off the visibility chart. And on the left side, it goes to purple, violet, and then that goes invisible as well. And of course, ultraviolet light is what is in sunlight. Infrared is in sunlight. When you're out in the sunlight and you feel warmth, that's infrared. When you start getting red skin and you get sunburn, that's ultraviolet. Okay, those are the two extremes, and everything else in between is the white light we see coming from the sun. Far infrared is a specific frequency of light which has been fine-tuned and observed to increase circulation under our skin. And so we have a far infrared sauna. And it really, you don't have to have the high temperatures to sweat. It will get things going, those little sweat glands circulating, the blood circulation underneath there. And it's much more effective than don't have to have as high temperatures. Full spectrum light is important to have all the frequencies. When we're in here in artificial lighting, we may be missing some of the components. Some of the fluorescent bulbs make it kind of look more bluish. These are not bad. I don't know what the phosphor is in these, but they're pretty white. Sodium vapor lights out in parking lots, those yellow lights, you ever seen some of those? Halogen lights, some of these things. Out in sunlight, the ultraviolet light in this situation is showing psoriasis. Helps to clear that up, stops that extra cell turnover. Blue light has been shown to be very helpful in clearing infections in the skin. And acne is little tiny pinpoint infections of the sweat glands. And so you can see the before and after effects of blue light on that individual. Here's an example of full spectrum and limited. You can see the charts above there. It's got hot spots, peaks, and a lot of it is in the yellow range, so the light over there looks yellow. You change the bulb and you put in, this says sulfur plasma. I've never heard of sulfur plasma, but the white LEDs are very close to this white light, very white. Full spectrum lighting. Now, ultraviolet light comes in three flavors. You've got ultraviolet A, ultraviolet B, ultraviolet C. Ultraviolet A is the highest energy form of ultraviolet light, and it's associated with a risk of skin cancer, actinic keratoses, cellular changes. So it's the one that you want to avoid. It's going to be the highest concentration in the middle of the day when the sun is directly overhead and goes through the least amount of atmosphere. So not very much of it is filtered out. But in the earlier parts of the day and afternoon, when the sun's got to go through a thicker amount of atmosphere because of the curvature of the Earth, and it comes through at an angle, then we get more of the ultraviolet B, which is more healthy, and that's beneficial to us in the production of vitamin D in our skin. And vitamin D is made from cholesterol. Here's the structure of cholesterol and vitamin D. You can see how close they are. All you have to do is open up one of the benzene rings. You can see over here CH3 becomes CH2. The carbon bond opens, and one of the hydrogens go down on the other end of it, and there's some minor changes, but it's very close to cholesterol. It comes in a couple of forms. We have D2 and D3. D3 is the final, when you create cholesterol into vitamin D, it is then metabolized in the liver to these other forms. and D3 is the one that's the most effective for all the health benefits that vitamin D gives us. So the ultraviolet light, here's the solar spectrum. It's very high in the visible area, and pretty much all the frequencies are going to be represented, so it's a full spectrum white light. Infrared, it trails way off there and extends for quite a ways. Ultraviolet's a little more narrow, so just that part of the solar spectrum is ultraviolet. Now, what happens when we don't have enough vitamin D, and we haven't been outside in the sunlight, and we're not taking vitamin D, and we're not making enough? And some areas of the world, people in our day and age, when people are living indoors more and more and more and not getting too much sunlight, we start seeing less and less calcium being absorbed. That's what vitamin D is important, among other things. It does a lot of stuff, but it has a primary effect on calcium absorption. So you can see how much loss of bone here in an older person, 75-year-old, boy, I don't want mine to get like that. I'm going to make sure I get out in the sunshine. I'm going to take some extra vitamin D3 as well. Children who didn't get out in the sunshine, we had in older periods of history, not too long ago, in the industrial age, we had a lot of child labor. They put these children in factories working all day long instead of outside. And rickets was an epidemic in industrialized Europe in the 1800s. So you had all these kids with bow-legged, soft bones, which bent. And when they discovered vitamin D, then programs to put vitamin D in food and to give it to all the school children were put into place to prevent rickets. So here they're lining up to get their vitamin D doses. Manufacturers caught on to this, and we started fortifying milk with vitamin D. Here's an ad from the late 50s. Schlitz beer with sunshine vitamin D, it says. Drink Schlitz all winter because you don't get as much sunlight in the winter months, I guess. Vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin. We don't have to get that much, actually. 20% of our skin exposed, which you can do that with just your arms, bare arms, and your face. That's about 20% of your body surface area accounted for there. 9 and 9, 18, about 4% for your face. And do that for 20 minutes a day. 10 minutes in the morning when the sun's before 10, 11 o'clock, and 10 minutes in the afternoon after 3 o'clock. And you got all the vitamin D you need for a day. Let's talk about another healing modality, hydrotherapy. I need to put a picture of you doing this at Bella Vita. Carolyn volunteered. I got a picture of her doing the neti pot. It's irrigating. It's going in one nostril, the upper one here, and goes through the sinuses and communicates down to the other side and out through the other nose. So you get a sinus irrigation. And it's continuous flowing. This is made with a little bit of salt water, so you don't want to do it with just regular water, but with a little bit of salt, so it's isotonic, about the same concentration as our blood. Blood's salty, you know. You ever taste your blood? Salty. Okay. Blood, and get salt in the water, and irrigate your sinuses out. Boy, is this really helpful. If you got pollen allergies, clean that stuff out. If you've got a sinus infection, good, get those things. Water on the inside, water on the outside. Good for infections. Jesus made use of water when he told that blind man, go wash in the pool of Siloam. In the Old Testament, Naaman, we had mentioned that too. Elisha told him, go wash in the river Jordan. How many times? 7 times. Well, hydrotherapy can be done in other ways too. Hot and cold is another form of using water. Water has excellent heat content. It will hold a lot of heat, and it'll conduct a lot of cold. We got ice cubes in that ice in that bucket over on the cold side. We did this in Germany last summer. I had the buckets on the floor and buckets on the table. So you put your hands in and your feet in the hot and the hot. Boy, it was hot. Man, it's hot. Until you could finally get it, the frog. You get used to it after a while. Okay. And then you go over to the cold. Man, when you go into that cold, tingle, tingle, tingle. It's like 1,000 little needles getting you all over. Wow. And then you go back to the hot. You don't stay in the cold very long. You stay in the hot a long time, get good in the hot. Back and forth, back and forth. And man, does that stimulate your circulation. It also increases your white count. White counts will jump right up within just an hour or two after hot-cold treatments like this. So if you've got an infection, you're battling some flu bug or some other infectious problem, hot-cold treatments like this, excellent way to stimulate your immune system to go and fight that infection. You can also use hot and cold for treating headaches. Now the dog's doing part of the therapy here. And what you want to do is get cold around your neck to constrict the blood flow going to your head. Vascular headaches is going to be most responsive to this kind of a treatment. Might help some tension headaches too. But vascular headaches are due to the blood vessels dilating, usually from an allergic response, inside your brain. So what you want to do is shunt the blood out of there, and you can draw it out to the extremities by putting your feet and hands in hot water and cold around your neck. So you're going to constrict blood flow into your brain and draw blood flow out to your extremities. And it's just amazing how fast this will abort a vascular migraine headache. Activated charcoal. Oh, this has lots and lots of uses. Of course, we use it in the emergency room, have for many years, as a universal antidote. Somebody comes in with an overdose, or they've eaten something they shouldn't have, they got food poisoning, or charcoal. Get them to drink that stuff, slurry, get it down there. Put it down in an NG tube if they're unconscious. Well, we might have to have them intubated too if they're unconscious. You don't want them vomiting and getting that down in their lungs. But you want to get charcoal down there. It has absorption abilities to bind with all kinds of poisons, and it's great on the inside for those things. You can also use it externally. Here we're preparing a activated charcoal poultice. And we used to do it. I didn't know as much back at first when I started doing this. I just put charcoal and added some water and, put it on there. If you make it too thin, it's really runny and it won't stay in place. Or it'll get absorbed into the gauze, if you want to put a gauze over it. So it's best if you combine it with something that will help hold it in place. And we use psyllium fiber, ground up flax meal, and let those first, add a little bit of water to that so it gets kind of gelatinous and gummy. And then you put the activated charcoal in there, mix that all up, and it'll stay in place. It helps bind it together. Wonderful absorption capability. If you've got an infected wound, red skin from an insect bite, put the activated charcoal on there. Absorbs all that stuff, clears it up very quickly. Here's application, and then we put saran wrap over that, wrap it up, keep it in place. If it's a infection that's gotten so that it's advanced, maybe some lymphangitis and this redness is going up the extremity, you may need to change that a couple times a day and do it for a day or two. But it's very quickly, sometimes just within hours, it will absorb all the problems and clear it right up. So as we talk about, there are internal uses, advantages. Another one is absorbing gas. Activated charcoal is very effective at absorbing gases and odors and If you've got bloated stomach or diarrhea from the flu or something, you can drink. You don't have to drink the black stuff. I've actually used just, you stir it up, let it settle until it's settled down to the bottom, and just drink the pretty much clear stuff at the top. There's still a lot of charcoal suspended in the water, even though you can't see it, and it's still effective. It works great for colic for babies as well. Another use, this is kind of topical, sort of internal, sort of topical, is brushing your teeth with activated charcoal. Now, I've just started doing this. I've got a week under my belt now. And the way I found that works really good is find yourself a toothbrush you want to use just for charcoal. Because I washed it real good and tried to get it out, but it still looks black. So I got a second toothbrush, and I get it wet under the water, and I take the bottle of the charcoal powder, and I turn it sideways, and I tap it until it's kind of got a slant of charcoal in there, up to the mouth. Ours is not completely full, so that makes it easy. And I got a slant. Then I put the toothbrush in there with the bristles down, and just touch it into the charcoal. And I pull it out, and it's covered with charcoal on the wet bristles of the toothbrush. Then I open my mouth up real wide, stick it in there, close around it so it doesn't fall down, and get all over the place. Fill your teeth there, get it so it's all wet and just kind of dissolved all over your teeth, and it looks like that when you smile. And then I close my mouth. I found the best time to do this is before taking a shower. In the shower. Keep it in there for 5-10 minutes so it can absorb whatever's stuck to your teeth. And over time, it whitens your teeth. It will absorb all those stains, and that's what I'm waiting for. I think it's a little bit whiter than it was. 1 week. She did this is a month. She did it for a month. So I'm going to hold out. I'm going to do it for a month, every day for a month, see what happens. Here's another example, other people doing it. You can see the difference there, before and after. Okay, let's spend a few minutes on essential oils. We haven't talked very much about this in our classes, but essential oils are becoming very popular. We watched a presentation by Dr. Axe, and some of his material is in these slides, so I want to give credit where credit is due. I also have a very big, thick book that I took as part of my naturopathy course on essential oils. It's got 900 pages, and I learned a lot in that book as well. Essential oils are essential for plants. That's why they're called essential oils. We talked about the essential amino acids. Well, that's essential for us. Essential oils are essential for the plant. They've got to have them, or they couldn't survive. We don't have to have them, but they're very beneficial for us in a lot of ways, as you'll see. Well, what do they do for the plants? They protect against infections. They're natural insecticides. They repel insects, some of these oils. The fragrance and the odor will repel the parasites and insects that would be damaging to the plants. They help protect against ultraviolet damage on the leaves. And because of that, some of the essential oils can be actually used to make sunblocker for us, to protect our skin from ultraviolet damage. And they prevent moisture loss. The oils help hold the fluid inside the leaves from evaporating. The haze that is famous in the Great Smoky Mountains or the Blue Ridge Mountains, that haze that you see over the mountains, is actually volatile oils coming from pine trees, pine oil. There are at least 300 references to various essential oils in the Bible. And in Exodus chapter 30, you'll see the recipe for anointing oil that Moses was given, that he was to anoint his brother and his sons to be priests. It was also used in applying to various infections. It's healing capacities. Myrrh is a preservative and a healer, and cinnamon is it says there in Exodus 30, verse 23, 24, I think it's verse 24, sweet cinnamon. Cinnamon is known to be of benefit to those who need to control their blood sugars. It helps to control blood sugar. And here's what the essential oils, this is based on the chemistry of terpenes. Terpenes are a class of structures. You can see how they develop from very simple to very long chains, carbon chains. And what gives the very small ones are the fragrances that get into the air and we can smell. The large ones with long strings of those ring structures become almost waxes. And so on roses have, a 20 ring terpene, very velvety, smooth petals. That's terpenes in there. It's these chemical structures. So essential oils, like let's take for example orange oil. They're not just one ingredient. It has many components. 34 different alcohols, 30 esters, 20 aldehydes, 14 ketones, 12 carboxylic acids, and 36 terpenes. Just in orange oil. So what happens is that manufacturers who want to sell pledge furniture wax with an orange scent. You know, it's pretty expensive to go get orange oil, real orange oil. So they find one of these components that smells like orange. That's the one that gives the orange smell. Let's figure out what that structure is, and we'll synthesize that one component and we'll put it in our product. You're missing all the other stuff that goes along with it when you have real orange oil. It came from the orange tree, an orange peel. Clove oil. Clove oil has the highest anti-inflammatory oxygen reactive radical absorbance capacity, free radicals. How many free radicals can clove oil absorb? Over 1 million. That's the highest known one. And so it has anesthetic properties. You put it on your gum on the inside there next to a sore tooth, it'll suck all the electrons out of the nerve tissues and you don't feel anything anymore. The dentists use clove oil for that purpose. Thyme essential oil has been known to have almost 100% kill rate for prostatic cancer cells in vitro. So you got it in a dish. And many people take advantage of that when they're treating some of these disorders. Well, as I explained, there are different grades, different sources of essential oils. Those that are commercial, just for smelling, or maybe for flavor. They will synthesize one component of the oil. So many times you'll see, like in some of these rub-on things, that smells like wintergreen, or it smells like peppermint, Bengay, and these kinds of things, but it may not be from the wintergreen plant. They may call it wintergreen, but it's methyl salicylate, which is close cousin to aspirin, which comes from birch trees, birch bark. But therapeutic, you may not get therapeutic effects from those synthesized single component parts. But from the whole plant, now you may have some benefit in terms of healing. So therapeutic grade is, you want to make sure you're getting everything you're entitled to when you're looking at essential oils. Then the highest, the purest grade is called food grade. And these are the ones that we can take internally. So different types of grades. Common uses are, you've all seen these little diffusers. The fumes are, the cloud is going up into the air. And so we have the aromatherapy, it's called. And there's a lot of benefit from breathing it. You can get it right into your bloodstream through your lungs by breathing these odors. And some of them are very effective that way. Topically is another way, and some of the more potent essential oils, some you can put directly on the skin, but a number of them should be avoided because they can burn your skin. Cinnamon, for example. Clove oil that we just mentioned. Tea tree? Is that, it can? Straight. Huh? You know by experience? Tea tree oil too. Yeah, some of them you have to be real careful with. And so you mix them with what's called a carrier oil. And coconut oil or olive oil are the two most common carrier oils. And to dilute it, it dilutes it out and allows it to be applied topically in a safe manner. And the third way is the internal, the food grade oils. So for example, you can take 1 drop of cinnamon essential oil in the morning with your green drink and help to stabilize your blood sugars through the day. That's one use for that. Okay, let's look at some of the specific essential oils quickly. Lavender, called spikenard or spikenard in the Bible. This is the oil that Mary had purchased with her life savings. And it was in an alabaster box that could only be opened by breaking the box. One-time use. She spent a year's wages for that, broke it open to anoint the feet of Jesus and his head. And it has a very calming effect on our body topically and in aromatherapy. So it's a really good one to put. If you got a little diffuser by your bed, lavender oil at night helps you go to sleep, calms you. And you can rub some in the back of your neck if you're feeling tense, and it helps relax you. Anxiety, insomnia, stress. Lemon oil comes from the lemon peels, not the lemon fruit inside or lemon juice, but it's clean, has a cleaning effect. You can use it for cleaning and for an antiseptic on furniture and countertops. Use it for sore throats. Mix it with a little lemon. Hot. I like hot lemonade. Made with lemon and lemon juice and honey. Sip that through a straw. Get it right on the back of your throat. It's really good. Natural detoxifier for your liver, lymphatics. Lemon water. Now this doesn't have as much lemon oil in it, but lemon water helps us drink more water if you need some flavor and some taste. And it promotes weight loss. So you can see the chemical structure there, the D-limonene molecule. Peppermint oil. This has been extensively researched and over 1,000 scientific articles available in PubMed describing the uses and effects of peppermint oil. It seems to have some beneficial effects in inflammatory bowel disease and bowel syndrome, diarrhea, leaky gut syndrome. It's a breath freshener, and so we see peppermint in mouthwashes and chewing gum. Improves focus and energy, and so may be helpful for children. Some studies, one of these PubMed studies was in classrooms for children, and changes in behavior, just smelling peppermint. Improves breathing, is good for bronchitis, along with eucalyptus oil, and headaches. I like to put it, if you get a tension headache, rub it right here on in the temple area, and right back here in your occipital nerve in the back of your neck. Burns. That's one of the ones that'll burn on your skin. Peppermint oil burns. But it seems to help. Melaleuca, which is tree tea oil. Tea tree. What did I say? Tree tea? Tea tree. You just misunderstood what I said. Okay, or it's my dyslexia account kicking in. Acne. Dr. Axe suggested, I've never tried this yet. Somebody try this and let me know how it works. You mix melaleuca or tea tree oil with honey and put that on your face for acne. Leave it on there for 2 minutes. Wash it off. Do it a couple times a day. It might work as good as blue light. Who knows? Maybe doing both would work. I know it works as a scalp in a shampoo because we got tea tree oil shampoo we're using. And good for dandruff. It's antimicrobial. It's a deodorant, gentle on the skin. Maybe mixed with other things to dilute it. Can treat toenail fungus. And he suggested mixing it with oil of oregano. And used in a diffuser can remove mold in your house if you've got mold problems. You can also put it in a little bit in the bottom of a garbage can for deodorizing it. We have to try that. We've got a couple of our compost cans that need it. Oil of oregano also, I'm talking about this now, immune support, good for colds. You can use this internally. Put a little drop under your tongue. It burns a little bit, but it's absorbed very quickly into your system that way. And do that a couple times a day for colds. Mix with coconut oil. There's a diluting oil to rub on your feet.
Be sure to mention to always keep it balanced with the oil because it will seriously burn.
Oil of oregano, yeah, it's pretty potent. And so, you mix it with coconut oil. That'd be a good. And here's an ingredient. Here you go for topical use. 5 drops of oil of oregano, 1 teaspoon coconut oil. So I'll give you a good, safe concentration. Frankincense. Oh, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. There's the frankincense tree. It is collected as little hard resin that oozes out from the bark on the tree. And you find these little nodules all up and down the limbs of the tree, and they harvest them that way. And here's what it looks like, a little small pile of it. It looks kind of like gold, doesn't it? And as we mentioned, I think before, frankincense was worth its weight in gold in old times. So frankincense and gold, frankincense, and myrrh they were all 3 valuable gifts that the wise men brought. It's good for age spots, sunspots. 3 drops. You can get the essential oil, put it in a moisturizer, and rub it on your skin. Mix it with myrrh. Boosts the immune system. It is known to also kill cancer cells, as thyme oil does. Put 2 drops on the thumb. This was told about someone who had, what was that case? He had metastasis to the brain, wasn't it? Wasn't it cancer? And he couldn't swallow or eat, so they rubbed it on the roof of his mouth. Put a couple of drops frankincense oil, rubbed it on the roof of his mouth. It crosses the blood-brain barrier and absorbed very quickly because the roof of your mouth, the sinuses are very close to the brain, and it also will. You're breathing when you put it on the inside your mouth like that. When you're breathing, you're constantly. It's like a internal diffuser, and also anti-aging. Oh boy, I have to try some more of that. Geranium oil relieves congestion, oily, dry skin, eczema, dermatitis, balances hormones and reduces wrinkles. Natural Botox tightens your muscles. Got to try that too. Here we're going to finish up. This is the end. Here's the prescriptions. Got a couple more here at the very end. Do-it-yourself rosemary sage shampoo. Rosemary blocks dihydrotestosterone, which is the cause of male pattern baldness, stimulates new follicle hair growth, and sage is also another balancer of hormones. So here we go. We're going to take 20 drops of rosemary oil and 10 drops of sage oil. Those are the 2 essential oils. We're going to mix them in 6 ounces of aloe vera gel. So that will dilute them out. And 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm not sure what the baking soda is for. Maybe it's a pH adjustment. I don't know. 5 tablespoons of that. And you make a shampoo out of it. And that's supposed to stimulate new hair growth and make what you got thicker. I wonder if it'll change.
Soda helps get rid of the oil.
The oil. Ah. Soda helps get rid of the oil.
Off the hair follicles. You don't want to have oily hair.
Oh, when you're finished, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be, it'll stay what, kind of gritty? Is it going to be gritty?
You're washing your hair with it, and then you rinse it out. It dissolves. It's all mixed together.
It's all mixed together here. Right, yeah.
But
Okay.
the soda will help get the...
It'll help get the oil out. All right, get the oil out. All right, y'all got that one written down. Here's the next one. This is a muscle rub. So here's your do-it-yourself Bengay, or what's that other one? Theragesic. There we go. So you going to be using peppermint oil, lavender oil, and cayenne pepper. There's the active ingredients. 15 drops each of the essential oils, peppermint and lavender, and 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. Wow, that's a lot, because you're only going to dilute this out in a 1/2 cup of coconut oil and a 1/4 cup of beeswax. Oh boy, that's why, that's why that's orange looking. It's the cayenne pepper and made it orange. So now cayenne has the active ingredient in cayenne that is analgesic is capsicum. And you can get capsicum cream now at drugstores. I used to get it by prescription. And so we're making our own. It's going to have an analgesic effect. The peppermint oil and the lavender oils are going to be relaxing, and the lavenders can be relaxing to the muscles. So if you've got muscle spasms, it's going to help relax it. Peppermint oil is going to also, like cayenne, stimulate blood circulation, increase blood flow there. So you mix that all up, keep it in a glass jar, rub it on as you need it, and enjoy. I think it should smell pretty good too, peppermint. Maybe we could put a little wintergreen oil in there, make it smell like Bengay.